Okay. So to start, state your name for the record, sir.
Yeah, my name is Hugh Davis. My nickname is Buck Davis, which is the way most people know me. If you try to find me on social media, I don't exist, but if you Google Hugh Buck Davis, they have some of my cases and various writings that they've put up on that site.
Okay. Where are you from originally?
I was born in a little railroad town in North Carolina called Rocky Mount. My dad worked on the railroad and we moved. I lived about 7 different places. Finally, Dad made headquarters, so I ended up finishing high school in Richmond, Virginia.
Where did you learn law?
I'm sorry?
Where did you learn your law?
I went to Harvard.
Okay, so why did a Harvard lawyer come to Detroit?
Dodging the draft.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't know or care anything about the law. When I got out of college in '65, it was a liberal arts school. I was going to have to get some kind of degree. I was pretty sure I didn't want to keep going to school down south with the same people that I'd gone to high school and college with. So I applied and got into Harvard. I was stunned in '68 when the war was still going on. I was only 24. I had to get to 26 to get into the secondary draft pool. And therefore, I canceled my wedding, canceled my plans to go on to business school, joined the Domestic Peace Corps called VISTA, and in September 1968 came to Detroit to attempt to cure poverty. I'm an obvious failure.
You are such a failure. I'm just kidding. How come you never left Detroit once you got here?
I had led a relatively privileged and pampered life. Southern male during segregation, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I had had all the breaks, gone to private schools. And I started in the first grade, went all the way through 19 straight years. I learned as much as I could. I believed everything they told me. A lot of it didn't make sense. The war really didn't make sense. When I got to Detroit, it was the year after the 1967 rebellion. Revolution was in the streets. They were doing everything they could to keep another outbreak from happening, which meant you could make any kind of proposal you wanted for any kind of community group you wanted, and they'd throw money at it, anything, just keep it quiet. I met people that were completely different than the people that I grew up with, went to school with, and not only completely different, completely more real, completely more honest, completely more interested in making things better as opposed to making things better for themselves. But I was still confused, and I remember about 3 months into it, my first boss, a very good guy, saw me standing there puzzled, and he said, "Davis, there's a reason this doesn't make any sense to you. You're thinking about it from the point of view of capitalism. Think about it from the point of view of socialism." It was like Saul on the road to Damascus. The scales fell away from my eyes, and all of a sudden I realized that I'd been taught a lie my entire life.
What was the lie?
That this system is constructed to help the majority of the people as opposed to screw the majority of the people. And once I realized that, I went back and read world history, political economy, philosophy, literature, religion. I was going to be a minister at one point. I reread it all, but from the point of view of socialism, and came to the conclusion that the system doesn't work, the economic system doesn't work, and the evidence is absolutely clear. They've destroyed every viable economic institution in the country, and now they're trying to steal all the money from the public schools and Social Security. Nothing but a bunch of greed heads, and build the biggest prison system in the goddamn world and treat their population like dogs and animals. So, that's the reason.
You mean these problems, especially in Detroit? Do you feel
well, there's no doubt that that the, shall we say, ruling class hates Detroit more than they hate any other city, and that's because of the strength of the civil rights movement here, of the union movement here, of the labor movement here, and the disgusting things they said about Detroit back during the bailout and back during the economic crisis, let it die, whatever. And down south, where I grew up, they don't have any unions, except railroad workers or people that, you know, and they hate unions. You sit and talk about a bar, you're sitting around in a bar down south talking about a union, you might as well sit around and be talking about communism. I mean, that's how bad it is. So they systematically looted the city. They systematically withdrew the productive forces. They systematically attacked the unions. They moved it to other parts of the country first, and now to other parts of the world. And therefore, the process that's going on in Detroit is merely a precursor to the process which is going to occur in the rest of the country and the world. They can't solve their problems. The system is not going to fix itself. They're going to destroy the environment, destroy the earth, while the 1% get richer and richer and everybody else gets screwed. Detroit's just the advanced poster child for that. There's nothing unique, it's just further down the road to destruction.
How can people fix it?
How can people fight that?
Yeah. Can it be fixed? I know that's not an easy question.
I used to think so. We really thought we had a shot at them in the late 60s and early 70s. Civil rights movement, black liberation movement, women's movement, gay movement, or, you know, environmental movement. All of that was bursting out. And that lasted until the fall of Saigon, April, May 1975. And we were big guns then. We were riding high. And we were pushing programs and building organizations. And we didn't understand that whenever a government loses a war, there's a brief internal period of leftward motion by the people that oppose the war. And then there's the reaction, like the rise of the Ku Klux Klan in the South, you know, to destroy the carpetbaggers and the Republican, you know, governments that included African Americans after the Civil War. It became a reign of terror. It wasn't quite that bad, but by 1973, the rising tide, economic tide, that resulted from us being the only major country with industrial capacity after the Second World War, we rebuilt the whole world. And we picked up all the marbles. And we made a lot of money. Well, when Nixon put in the wage price freezes in 1973, remember, a wage price freeze is a wage freeze. It's never a price freeze. Since 1973, the majority of the people in this country have continuously had their standard of living reduced. And it's going to continue. I thought the Occupy movement was a nice fight back and understanding that, number one, the whole system doesn't work. It isn't one part of it. It isn't Wall Street. It isn't the government. It's all of it protected by the media. And they got a system. And it works. And they got enough money to hire smart people to go out and lie. And there are enough ignorant people in this country, blinded by religion, racism, whatever they're blinded by, and they'll believe anything. They still believe Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11. And you can argue till you're blue in the face. So when they have that massive base of ignorance, primarily in the former slave-holding states, where the poor white people have always clung to the only thing they have, which is that they aren't black people, you know. That's where all the people that got the money, that run it, you know, they're laughing. Look, voting Republican, you know. Why? I vote Republican to keep foreigners, minorities, women, socialists, gays, and liberals from ruining my life. I vote Republican to keep this moron from realizing I'm the only person ruining his life. Right. And so that's what it is. And do I believe that they have now built military infrastructure from the motel guard at the Motel 6 to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, where the Army, which used to be separate, wedded with the DEA, wedded with the CIA, wedded with the NSA, wedded with the state police, you know, wedded to the local police.
Hey, Bob.
I'm sorry, I'm in an interview.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we snuck up on them in the 60s and the 70s. We ain't gonna sneak up on them again. They're ready. And they don't care. They will kill you.
So
they
what?
have killed us.
Why do you stay in Detroit then? If there's no hope, why don't you just quit your law and...
Well, one, every revolutionary likes to think that the revolution will occur in their lifetime. Well, obviously, most of them throughout history have been wrong. So why should I be any different? Oh, well, it might not happen while I'm alive, therefore I'll give up everything I believe in and say it's all right, Jack. That's silly, you know. And two, I like the people here. I like, you know, I went to school in Boston. My first wife worked in the Pentagon, and I spent a lot of time in Washington. I like the people here. I like the fight. I like the fairly clear lines between the working people and the people that own and run the stuff. And I've kicked in all the doors here. Right? What am I going to do? Go teach a whole bunch of federal judges in some other state that, you know, I'm smart and that I'm a leftist and that I do the right thing and I never lie and I only represent little guys against big guys, never big guys against little guys. What's the point? I'm very comfortable here. I live inside the city of Detroit. I rarely leave it. The suburbs are nothing but hotbeds of lifestyle crimes and turning the courts and the probation departments into profit centers, you know. Half of the people in Oakland County are on some kind of goddamn 12-step program to some kind of judge somewhere, somehow, or they're all being counseled to death and have to pay for the privilege. It's all part of the militarization and prison industrial complex. Young people today, you want to get a job? You got to specialize in, criminal justice. What a name. Ha! When's the last time anybody saw any of that? Criminal justice, you know? But they're economic refugees. You ain't going to get a job anywhere else unless you join the military. So you got to act like you believe in this crap and get caught up in a system which is as internally corrupt and weird as any other. And that's how I make my money, suing cops. It's a growth business.
What about, I remember once when I talked to you, you told me why you yanked your kids out of school, out of the, I think, suburbs, I don't remember exactly, and you put them in Detroit. Tell me that story again, please.
I was living in Lafayette Park, and I'd remarried, and my wife had a couple of kids from her first marriage, and they were getting to be the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, when things change a lot for kids. They'd grown up in Livonia. She had moved downtown when we got together. And it was an interesting experiment, but even though we were sending them to Friends School in Detroit, there's no Boy Scouts. There's no this. And as being among the few white kids, they're beginning to get some racial harassment from the African American kids. One of my wonderful marijuana dealer clients went sailing in the Bahamas and left a house out on the river, out on the Clinton River, and asked me to take care of it. And it turned out we bought it, we moved out there, put the kids in Catholic school, and Mount Clemens, and within literally weeks, the kids are coming home saying nigger this and nigger that. Well, I grew up in that, and I know what poison it is. And that's why every morning I got up and drove them back to Catholic schools in Detroit, UD Jesuit or Bishop Gallagher, because I wasn't having my kids grow up in that sort of racist atmosphere.
And why don't you leave Detroit much anymore? Well, you already said that, didn't you?
Well, what?
Well,
I have a, shall we say, questionable lifestyle. So if you drink and smoke dope every day, it's not a real good idea to be out riding around, Mm-hmm. And if you sued every city, county, police department, whatever, surrounding Detroit, they would love to get me. They got me one time in 1989 in Farmington Hills. It took me 3 days, a 3-day trial, to beat that case. After it was over, the state cop came up to me and said, "I see the system failed to work again." I said, "Fuck you, Porky. You want to have a drink? Let's go south of 8 Mile Road." If they want to play me, they can play me downtown. It doesn't take long to get from Indian Village to downtown Detroit. It doesn't take long to get back. And the cops aren't looking for trouble, and neither is anybody else. I feel like I live in the safest city in America.